Hello and welcome to Hops and Bros this week.
Macro being micro or micro becoming macro. Nothing makes sense.
For an open window on a crafty world, Max and Chris from Ups and Brews. Ups and Brews. Welcome to Ups and Brews.
All right, so this week we're taking a look at something it's very unique, very special, and that's microbreweries or independent craft breweries imitating the big guys to create their beers.
Exactly. So we're kind of like reminiscing,
Yeah.
of the Clone War bad sequel here.
Okay.
It's not gonna be as bad as we think, but some clones of bigger, very popular beers are popping up in the market.
Which I think is very interesting in the simple sense that the big guys have to be respected for a few things. The first one is efficiency. They create very efficient beers. At least they create their beers in a very efficient way and utilizing materials, so in this case hops and malts and whatnot, in a very, very efficient way to create a very consistent product, which is something that the craft beer industry kind of lacks. They lack consistency throughout, the full thing.
Yeah.
Most breweries are not necessarily very consistent with their beers, which is kind of the charm of it.
But having the challenge of playing with those techniques that are now, let's say, more readily available for those brewers that for years, decades have been battling against those big guys, now they kind of like want to go back to those famous beers, speaking of Budweiser, Coors Light, or all that big macro stuff. Smaller breweries are kind of like playing around those beers to create little clones, a little bit more aromas, a little bit more flavors, but still playing with the same little tricky tricks behind them.
Which is kind of great. There's a reason why those beers made it as popular as they are today, and they've trained the palate of the public. There's a reason why people love Budweiser, they love Blue, they love Coors Light. They're liking a lot of the flavors, a lot of the off flavors. So by kind of replicating those on a more craft level, you're attracting that crowd to craft beer, introducing them to it, and then pushing them towards different, more extreme styles in the craft industry.
But also on the other end, you get the very hipster crowd, the cool guys like me and Max, who's been drinking double IPAs, saison, sour, barrel-aged stouts, and whatsoever for over 5, 6, 10 years, and now that are kind of like looking for alternatives that maybe will bring us back to or that beers that we were stealing in the fridge back when we were younger, like Labatt 15 and all that. And having those breweries suggesting those beers in their lineup is an easy reach for me, for Max, and for other customers that I think are still looking for that option, but don't want to put the bucks into the big guy's pocket, but in the small guy pocket.
So, the one that comes up to mind first before we say the next one is the Light from the Dominion City, which to me is kind of a Coors Light clone. I think no, but it is.
I crushed it at the cottage.
It is one of my favorite craft beers ever. Now, forgetting the fact that it's kind of a reminiscent macro beer clone, it is still very beautifully brewed. The off flavors that are in the beer are kind of linked to those macro beers, making them not off flavors, but on flavors for this. And the beer is really refreshing. It's a delicious beer. Now, another one that comes to mind when we're talking about these clones, these copies, is the Budweiser. Which, it's a great pun on this. Budweiser, it is phenomenal. And it is so much better than a Budweiser. It's not even comparable. But branding-wise, I love it. I think it's great.
It's clean, it's on point. But speaking of branding, a lot of breweries played so much on the fine line of branding and on not copying, but inspiring themselves from the classic beer or the classic macro beer. Speaking of brothers out there in Toronto that created the Bud Light. So close to the original Bud Light label that they actually got a cease and desist from Labatt themselves about that label.
Or Molson.
Molson. I'm always
Bud Light, Coors Light, Molson. Yes.
They're all in the same bucket.
But it's phenomenal that they actually got cease and desisted for copying something that is so much bigger. Why would Coors Light bother with something as small and insignificant as a craft beer if they didn't feel kind of threatened by them? I think it's phenomenal, and it does add to the whole spectrum behind this. And I believe this happened very closely to when Bellwoods released the Budweiser.
Yeah.
It was kind of a nod to one another. They're like, let's try to recreate something from the macros. Call it something really close and see how the Toronto market takes it. And the Toronto market loved it.
I loved it, and
I'm a huge fan.
Every single time I pass by Bellwoods, it's always a straight reach for me. I said the same things with the Dominion City Light. It's just a perfect beer, and it's like only available during summertime for Dominion City.
Yeah.
I know sometimes they do some little releases here and then, but it's clearly labeled as like a beach beer.
Summer beer, a beach beer,
and it's perfect. But when a brewery, like a small brewery, Dominion City, Bellwood, how do they recreate this same experience in the brewing spectrum, Max?
Beer's beer. So when you're brewing beer, you just use the same techniques as the macrobreweries do, and then you'll end up with a beer that's similar to it. And the way that you avoid having those weird kind of thin-bodied flavors is by not doing dilution after fermentation. So you actually create the beer as it's intended to be, without trying to cut corners to save money. You're creating a perfect product in its entirety, instead of producing a product in a larger way and then diluting afterwards. It's not hard to do. I mean, those recipes, beer recipes, are pretty much, when you're trying to recreate a style like that, they're public knowledge. Everyone knows those recipes. They know how to recreate them.
Yeah, if you go out there, there's like thousands and thousands of recipes of clones from bigger breweries, but also bigger microbreweries that you can easily find and homebrew at home to try them out. But Max, does that mean that if you want to do like a perfect clone of the Budweiser, let's say, playing with rice, adjuncts like corn is something that you might have to put in your own homebrewing toolkit, toolbox, whatever?
100%. It's another tool that you can use. I mean, rice, corn, pumpkins, potatoes, they've all been used to brew beer. It's a sugar source, it's a starch source for all of those things. So just keep them in your toolbox. It's there. Use it.
Yeah, but it's different, right?
Yeah.
It's been something that
it's something you do specifically for a beer you want to recreate or a beer you want to create, period. It's just like lactose. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of lactose, but end of the day, it is a tool in your toolbox that you can use when trying to recreate or create a beer that should or shouldn't have lactose in it. I have a lot of mixed feelings. Anyways,
are we getting on that debate now?
Not getting on it. I'm just coming back to it's a tool in your toolbox.
It's a tool in the toolbox, but it's also something that macro brewers have been kind of like pointed out in their own corner for so long. Oh, they're using corn in their beer. They're using rice in their beers. And now we're seeing a lot more craft brewers playing with those ingredients without kind of like being pointed out like, hey, you're using corn, you're using rice. Why not are you like the other guys, right?
A lot of craft breweries are using corn, are using rice. A lot of craft breweries, you'd be surprised, are diluting their beers after fermentation to create more product. It is something that is used in the industry. People don't advertise it because there is a stigma to it, but it is being done. And it's not necessarily being done for the worst. In some cases, it's done for the best.
Yeah. So we're here to end the stigma towards playing with different ingredients, which we've been battling for way too long against lactose, rice, corn. What?
Just enjoy beer for being beer and support independent craft beer.
That's what's
Did that
important.
rhyme? I'm not sure. Anyways, if you like the video,
It sounds like it rhymed.
It sounds like it did.
Before
Yeah.
that, we need to plug our merch.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it's
that's
been
true.
a while.
Yeah.
They don't know. New viewers, we have merch. We have t-shirts.
So if you look in the link down there, you'll get a link to our merch. We've got t-shirts. You can pick and choose the size you like. We've got V-necks. We've got tanks. We've got regular shirts. We've got crew necks. All with the Hops and Bros branding. All the proceeds of those shirts go back to the show where we reinvest to try to create better and more content for you.
And also, please note that we're also paying David Buis for his amazing
It's true.
work
We are
on
100%.
the project. So
Amazing artwork by David Buis. If you're not following him on Instagram right now, go.
Yeah.
Pause the video, stop the video, do whatever you need. Go on Instagram.
Don't pause
start
it. We're
following.
giving you a little break. You can go check it out. Wait a second. Perfect. Yeah, right there.
Honestly,
left corner.
you're giving him a lot more credit than you think. It would take me a lot longer than the pause you gave for me to go to
get
Instagram.
and watch it?
I'm an old man.
Sure.
I don't,
You're-
I
no,
don't
not
do
that
that
old.
stuff anymore.
Perfect. So you got it? That was easy. Good job.
Please like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Cheers.
Cheers.